the vast history of the Roman Republic, there's a legendary figure celebrated as the founder of the Roman Empire and hailed as a hero of the Western world. Though never officially crowned emperor, his name became synonymous with all future emperors. This iconic figure is none other than Julius Caesar. After Rome's conquests of Carthage and Macedonia, it dominated the Mediterranean but faced internal and external crises, with social and political turmoil threatening the Republic. It was during this time that Julius Caesar emerged as a savior. Upon taking power, Caesar swiftly restructured the aristocracy-controlled republic with an iron fist, strengthening central authority and monopolizing military and political power. This transition from a republic to a monarchy laid the foundation for the Roman Empire. In 82 BC, an 18-year-old Caesar, born into a prestigious family with his father, a praetor, and his uncle, a consul, seemed destined for a promising future. However, a civil war changed everything. After Sulla defeated Marius and entered Rome as a conqueror, he wielded absolute power, initiating a reign of terror and implementing harsh punishments. While checking the proscription list, Caesar was shocked to find his wife, Cornelia's father, listed. He immediately took his daughter, Julia, and rushed to his father-in-law's house to warn him. On the way, he realized the arrest had already begun. With no time to lose, Caesar arrived just as two informants did. He urged his father-in-law to escape while he stayed behind to confront the men. In the midst of their intense battle, a large contingent of Republican soldiers arrived. One of the informants told the leading general Pompey that Caesar was helping a criminal escape. This marked the first encounter between Caesar and Pompey, two future giants of the First Triumvirate, who would later clash in a civil war over control of Rome. Shortly after, Caesar was wrongfully imprisoned. In this place, executions were a daily occurrence, and for the first time in his life, Caesar felt utterly helpless. This experience ignited a powerful desire for power within him. While he was contemplating how to escape, the guards in the dungeon brought him before Sulla. It turned out that Caesar's mother had recently pleaded with Sulla to spare her son's life. Sulla, who had always held Caesar in high regard, gave him two choices: either face death or marry his daughter and become a loyal subordinate. Caesar refused immediately. He was unwilling to bow to his father-in-law's enemy and did not want to lose Cornelia. Enraged by Caesar's decision, Sulla ordered his immediate execution. At this critical moment, Pompey stepped forward and told Sulla, "You should be more concerned about those who smile and flatter you than about Caesar." With these words, Sulla unexpectedly released Caesar. This action puzzled everyone, including Caesar. However, his instincts told him that things were not as simple as they seemed. Sure enough, shortly after leaving the palace, Caesar encountered a man on horseback blocking his way. Upon closer inspection, he realized it was Pompey. Caesar then understood that Sulla had not executed him in the palace was only to avoid staining the carpet. Just as Caesar gathered his courage to face a duel, Pompey suddenly said he was there to warn Caesar, just not to see him die at such a young age. He advised Caesar to leave Rome and head to Bithynia in the east, giving him a ring and telling him that the king of Bithynia would take care of him upon seeing the ring. Though Caesar did not understand why Pompey was helping him, he had no time to ponder. He took the ring and left Rome by ship. Unfortunately, the ship had not traveled far before it was attacked by pirates, and Caesar was captured, tied to a cross, and left in the water. This truly was a case of a lion in a cage. The great Caesar himself was captured by a band of pirates, and to save his life, he had to pay a ransom. However, what the pirates did next was utterly insulting to the future emperor. The pirates told Caesar, "Your life is worth only 2 talents. Caesar, thinking the ransom was too low for someone of his stature, offered to increase the amount. This left the pirates bewildered. They had never encountered a hostage who volunteered to pay more ransom. They decided to release him immediately. Then Caesar asked, "Who will go to fetch the ransom?" Looking at his companions, he said, "They will get the money." So his companions left the island, leaving Caesar alone as a hostage. As time passed, his companions didn't return with the ransom, and the pirates grew impatient, ready to kill Caesar. However, perhaps out of hunger, Caesar mistakenly thought the pirates were challenging him to a duel. This intrigued the pirates, and a fierce fight ensued. Despite being famished, Caesar quickly overpowered the pirate, proving his prowess. But just as the pirate prepared for another round, Caesar suddenly had a seizure and collapsed. The pirate coldly remarked, "Since no one is bringing the ransom, let's throw him into the sea to feed the fish." As they were about to throw Caesar into the sea, a ship appeared on the horizon. It was Caesar's companions bringing the ransom. The pirates, true to their word, released Caesar after receiving the payment. Caesar narrowly escaped danger. After this incident, Caesar continued his escape. During his journey, he received astounding news. Sulla had unexpectedly died in Rome. With his enemy gone, Caesar saw no reason to continue fleeing and returned to Rome in 74 BC. However, he was met with a devastating blow. His wife, Cornelia, had succumbed to illness brought on by her longing for him. After 8 years of fleeing, Caesar hadn't expected such an outcome. Filled with guilt and anger, he realized all his suffering stemmed from his own weakness. Standing by his wife's body, Caesar vowed before everyone, "Never again will Rome suffer under a dictator like Sulla. Here, we will always live in harmony, striving together to build a stronger Rome." His words were met with thunderous applause, yet this also made Pompey feel threatened. He instructed his men to keep a close watch on Caesar. Meanwhile, Caesar began using his family's influence to slowly build his own power base. Generous and lavish with money, he quickly increased his political influence. With the support of the Senate, Caesar was appointed as Rome's financial officer. But Caesar wasn't satisfied. He sought even greater power. However, to advance further, money alone wasn't enough. At that time, Egypt's grain supply to Rome was cut off, causing a food shortage and widespread panic among the populace. The Senate urgently convened a meeting to decide how to deal with the pirates. Everyone agreed that a strong military response was needed, but they couldn't agree on who should lead the charge. Some supported Pompey, while others were against it. At this point, Pompey was already a distinguished leader, and if he won this battle, his influence would grow even stronger, making it harder for the Senate to control him. In the midst of the heated debate, Caesar suddenly stood up. In front of all the senators, he lavished praise on Pompey, urging everyone to set aside personal feelings. Then Caesar made a bold proposal. "I propose we put our strength together to become a force the world has never seen. Those who let a single man, lead us out of the darkness, close ranks with Pompey." Caesar's intention was clear. He wanted Pompey's support. Pompey, recognizing the opportunity, didn't hesitate. That very night he approached Caesar, offering him a place by his side and promising to help him gain more power. Thus, a superficial alliance was formed. Soon after, Pompey set out on his campaign against the pirates, waging battles at sea for years until he finally eradicated them. He returned to Rome as a victor, welcomed by cheering crowds. Caesar watched all this, deeply impressed. He realized that money alone couldn't buy true power. Only military success could bring ultimate glory. As everyone celebrated Pompey's triumph, Caesar had another seizure. His mother hurriedly took him home to recover. When he awoke, Caesar told his mother he wanted to go on a military campaign. She replied, "If you want an army, you'll have to borrow it from Pompey. But why would he lend it to you?" This made Caesar ponder deeply. What he didn't realize was that his daughter, Julia, had overheard the entire conversation. That night, Julia approached Caesar privately and told him she wanted to marry Pompey. Caesar asked, "Do you really love him?" Julia firmly replied that she did. In truth, Julia's real motive was her understanding of her father's grand ambitions. She knew that eventually Caesar and Pompey would clash. By marrying Pompey, she could help mediate between them and make it easier for her father to borrow troops. Seeing his daughter's determination, Caesar reluctantly agreed, thus becoming Pompey's father-in-law. Shortly after, Caesar asked Pompey for a legion, which Pompey granted, allowing Caesar to begin his campaign in Gaul. The Gallic Wars marked a crucial turning point in Caesar's life, setting him on the path to his greatest triumphs. In 58 BC, Governor Julius Caesar of Gaul, aiming to enhance his power and gain political capital, led an army of nearly 20,000 soldiers across the Roman frontier, launching an invasion of the Gallic region. Gaul was a vast territory to the north of the Roman Republic, encompassing parts of modern-day northern Italy, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. Early in the history of the Roman Republic, the Gauls had sacked Rome, leaving a deep-seated hatred among the Romans. If Caesar could conquer Gaul, he would not only train a large number of new troops, but also win the support of the Roman populace, paving the way for greater power. To win this campaign, Caesar adopted a strategy of self-sufficiency, abandoning reliance on supplies from Rome and forcing his army to live off the land. The Gauls, composed of various tribes with a lack of unity and cohesion, were no match for the disciplined Roman forces. The Roman army advanced rapidly, penetrating deep into Gaul. After 2 years of arduous battles, Caesar had conquered most of what is now France. As his victories mounted, Caesar began sending reports of his achievements back to Rome, which became known as the Commentaries on the Gallic War. Written in the third person, these reports were designed to attract supporters and garner attention from the Roman people. However, when these reports reached Rome, the Senate became uneasy and demanded that Pompey order Caesar to return to Rome. Pompey, however, did not comply as he supported Caesar's campaign. Caesar continued his advance into Germania and Britannia, becoming Rome's greatest conqueror and significantly increasing his popularity among the Roman citizens. He attracted numerous talented individuals to his cause, including a young noble named Mark Antony, who became one of Caesar's most loyal supporters due to his exceptional military skills. By 53 BC, Caesar had nearly complete control over Gaul, with only the territory of Gergovia remaining unconquered. As the Roman army marched again, they were ambushed by a well-trained group of Gauls in a forest, suffering heavy losses. The leader of these Gauls was named Vercingetorix, one of Caesar's most formidable opponents. Enraged by this setback, Caesar decided to besiege the town of Elesia, where Vercingetorix had taken refuge. Vercingetorix prepared to defend the town to the death, while Caesar constructed extensive fortifications around it, opting for a strategy of surrounding and starving the enemy out. Knowing his situation was dire, Vercingetorix awaited reinforcements from other Gallic tribes, but, due to a lack of food, ruthlessly expelled the elderly, women, and children from the town. Meanwhile, the Roman army also faced food shortages, leading to internal conflicts. Anticipating the arrival of enemy reinforcements, Caesar decided to build a double-layered super fortification. He meticulously recorded this engineering feat in his Commentaries on the Gallic War, an inner ring of 16.5 kilometers to besiege the 80,000 Gauls inside Elesia, and an outer ring of 21 kilometers to block the approaching Gallic reinforcements. The space between the two rings, of 120 meters wide, was used by the Roman camp. The outer ring featured 7 layers of defenses, including a trench, lilia, pit traps, a moat, a deep ditch, a 3.6-meter-high defensive wall, sharpened stakes, and watchtowers every 24 meters. Caesar knew that failing to resolve the situation at Elesia before the arrival of the Gallic reinforcements would endanger his army. Soon, the Gallic reinforcements arrived. The Roman army, numbering only 50,000, faced a dire situation, being attacked from both the front and rear. Despite the odds, Caesar calmly deployed his tactics, instructing his subordinates to fiercely resist the left flank of the Gallic reinforcements, while he confronted Vercingetorix, preventing him from attacking the main Roman positions. The Gallic reinforcements launched a relentless assault, and despite the Romans' use of heavy weapons, they could not halt the enemy's advance. The Gauls split into two groups, one using ladders to scale the fortress walls, while the other used battering rams to breach the outer walls. Despite the heroic efforts of the Roman soldiers, the Gauls eventually broke through the outer defenses. Realizing that defense alone was futile, Caesar decisively chose to go on the offensive, sending his cavalry to strike the rear of the Gallic reinforcements, creating a reverse encirclement. The Gallic reinforcements fell into disarray and were ultimately defeated. With less than 50,000 troops, Caesar had defeated 80,000 enemies inside the fortifications and 260,000 enemies outside, creating a legendary victory in military history. This triumph marked the complete subjugation of Gaul to Rome. However, Caesar could not rejoice, as he received news that his daughter Julia had died in childbirth, signaling the breakdown of his alliance with Pompey. The two men were now destined for a deadly confrontation. He was Vercingetorix, the last hero of Gaul, now stepping alone into the enemy camp as a defeated leader, seeking a way to save his men. "I'm giving myself to you, Caesar. I give you my own life, so that you may let my men live." Caesar simply stared at him coldly, saying nothing. Seeing this, Vercingetorix removed his armor and prostrated himself before Caesar, once again earnestly pleading. This former king, willing to humble himself to save his men, presented a heart-wrenching scene that even the Roman soldiers found hard to ignore. At this time, the Senate was preparing to ally with Pompey against Caesar. After 8 years of hard-fought campaigns, this was the outcome, leaving Caesar feeling betrayed. However, he was no longer the inexperienced Aemon of the past. 8 years of warfare had not only won him immense popularity among the Roman people, but also greatly strengthened his power. His initial 4 legions had grown to 10. Since the Senate was disobedient, he resolved to force them into compliance. "I'm going to Rome. I'm going to cross the Rubicon. Will anyone be coming with me?" As Caesar's army advanced towards Rome, Pompey received news that Caesar had crossed the Rubicon. His general would arrive in Rome in 4 days. At this moment, the Senate and Pompey lacked the strength to confront Caesar's army and decided to leave Rome for Greece to raise an army, planning to strike back later. Thus, in 49 BC, Caesar entered Rome without bloodshed. Returning to the Republic with the highest military honors, he was welcomed by crowds of citizens. Along with him came Vercingetorix, now a prisoner of war. Shortly thereafter, Caesar, in front of the gathered masses, walked to the center of the assembly. His prestige among the Roman people was at its peak, forcing the Senate to concede and grant him the title of dictator. Amid this grand ceremony, an old man with white hair suddenly appeared. He warned Caesar to beware the Ides of March. Caesar, puzzled, dismissed the warning, thinking it foolish, as he had more pressing matters at hand, dealing with the Senate. Next, he led his forces to suppress the Senate. The senators, seasoned political operators, quickly shifted their allegiances. As soon as Caesar entered, they shouted their support. In front of the assembly, Caesar announced that his men would join the Senate. The senators were stunned, never having seen such audacity. They objected, claiming it violated Roman law. Caesar firmly replied, "The law has changed, and keep in mind, the people trust my judgment." He then left, not wanting to waste more words. With the Senate dealt with, it was time to address Vercingetorix. Caesar did not wish to execute this worthy adversary, recognizing in him a kindred spirit, both willing to sacrifice everything for their goals. Yet Vercingetorix sought death. His fate sealed the moment he was defeated. Caesar, though pained, had to comply with the will of the Roman people and soldiers. Afterward, Caesar pursued the fleeing Pompey to Pharsalus, where they clashed in the Battle of Pharsalus. Pompey was decisively defeated and fled. Caesar searched Pompey's camp for clues to his whereabouts, but found none. He then turned to the captives outside the camp, focusing on a man named Brutus, whose father Pompey had killed, creating a deep-seated grudge. Caesar summoned Brutus, hoping to learn Pompey's location. However, Brutus, hoping for reconciliation, suggested Caesar and Pompey rule Rome together. To Caesar, their relationship was already fragile, maintained only by political marriage. With his daughter Julia's death, any bond between them was broken. Brutus, seeing no other option, betrayed Pompey in exchange for Caesar's mercy and trust. Upon learning Pompey had fled to Egypt, Caesar pursued him. Pompey, having once helped stabilize the rule of Ptolemy XVIII, naively expected sanctuary from Ptolemy III. He misjudged the complexities of human nature and met an unexpected end in Egypt. This outcome was beyond his wildest nightmares. When Caesar arrived, he found only Pompey's severed head. Ptolemy III, thinking this would please Caesar, only succeeded in enraging him. Although Pompey was his political rival, he was also his son-in-law, and only Caesar had the right to execute him. Caesar, furious, returned to his quarters, sweeping everything off his desk in a rage. At that moment, a mysterious woman in a black robe appeared before him. She was none other than Cleopatra, the famed queen of Egypt. Cleopatra's late-night visit to Caesar had a simple goal. She wanted his help to reclaim the throne of Egypt, promising him all the wealth of Egypt in return. However, Caesar was not one to act without assurance. Seeing this strategy fail, Cleopatra resorted to something no man could refuse, herself. Thus, Caesar embarked on a campaign to conquer Egypt. The ensuing Battle of Alexandria saw Caesar's victory, the death of Ptolemy III, and Cleopatra's ascension to the throne. With Cleopatra as queen, Caesar held absolute power over both Egypt and Rome. His authority peaked. Shortly after, Caesar returned to Rome, and his triumph in Egypt had elevated his stature among the Romans to unprecedented heights. Some even crowned his statues, a sight that alarmed the Senate. Cleopatra then appeared in Rome with their child, causing further tension among the senators. When their child was presented, Brutus and Cassius could not hold back. Caesar, now dictator of the Republic, was seen by them as a threat to the Republic's existence. They feared he would abandon the Republic and establish a monarchy, something they could never accept. Thus, they conspired to assassinate him. On the fateful day, Brutus hid a dagger in his sleeve, but his wife Portia noticed and followed him, determined to uncover the truth. To her shock, she overheard Brutus conspiring with the senators to kill Caesar. Confused and distraught, Portia didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Brutus lured Caesar to the Senate under the pretense of reading a petition intending to ask him to return power to the Senate. As Caesar prepared to leave, his wife, Calpurnia, begged him not to go, recounting a nightmare she had where he was murdered in a pool of blood. Brutus, fearful, dismissed it as mere superstition, reassuring Caesar it was just a dream. Caesar, unconvinced but determined, promised Calpurnia he would return after the meeting and left for the Senate. Shortly after Caesar's departure, Portia revealed the assassination plot to Calpurnia. As Caesar arrived at the Senate, he was unaware of the danger lurking around him. The senators slowly surrounded him, and without warning, they attacked. Caesar, stabbed multiple times, fell to the ground in agony. Among his attackers, he saw Brutus, someone he had treated as a son. The betrayal was devastating. As he lay dying, he glanced at Pompey's statue, realizing their similar fates. Both had been betrayed by those they trusted most. Calpurnia rushed to the Senate, only to find her husband lying in a pool of blood, barely alive. On March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar, at the age of 56, was assassinated. His life was nothing short of legendary. At 40, he conquered Britain and defeated France, transforming Rome into Europe's strongest power. At 50, he marched on Rome itself, quelling internal strife with an iron fist. Then he conquered Egypt, overthrowing Ptolemy III. At 56, he was made dictator for life, beloved by many. His military campaigns, especially documented in his Commentaries on the Gallic War, remain highly regarded by historians and military enthusiasts alike. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next episode.